Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another of the Fierce Force figures to take a look at here for the Mattel Jurassic World Dino Escape line, as we have the newest version of the Velociraptor here to take a look at. This figure was sent to me, thankfully, from Greg from Dino Scream Reviews, who was awesome enough, as usual, to help hook me up with a figure that I was having some trouble finding in my area. He's always helping me out, helping me to acquire stuff, because it's nearly impossible sometimes to find stuff here. So again, a huge thank you to my buddy Greg for helping me out with this one. But the figure does look pretty fun. I will say straight away, it looks much nicer in hand than I was expecting it to. I definitely wasn't a huge fan of it initially because I felt like it looked very awkward and kind of fat. Like it almost looks pregnant from some vantage points, but it's definitely not as weird looking in hand as I thought it would be. It definitely looks a little nicer. However, we haven't truly taken it out of the package or anything like that to get a good look at it. But the figure, again, has a pretty fun looking paint scheme and paint that runs all the way out onto the tail, so that straight away is definitely a plus as far as this one goes. The actual packaging, again, is your standard Dino Escape packaging, and then here on the back we have kind of like a sneak peek of the action feature here for the Raptor, as well as an image down here in the corner that shows off some of the other Fierce Force figures, one of which is the Machikosaurus, which we have reviewed here on the channel already. So let's go ahead, pop this out of its box, and take a look at it. And here is our Velociraptor. Actually stands pretty nicely. It feels like it's kind of leaning forward, or like the body, because of the weird positioning of the body, it kind of looks like it would fall forward, but it's standing so far, so that's definitely a plus. And again, out of package, it does look a little funny. The body just seems, I don't know, just kind of long. Like it just seems way too long for me right here in this area. Obviously, that's due to the action feature we have going on here, but it definitely just seems a little bit off as far as the body goes. One huge plus, though, is that we don't have pronated wrists on this one, and that's something that you definitely don't often see from the Mattel figures, so that is really nice. And another really cool aspect of this figure is this is the first time, I believe anyway, that we've had the JP3 style sculpt here with that kind of crest that those raptors are known for on something that's not the jumping raptor in the Mattel line. So that's definitely really cool as well, to finally have this head sculpt on something else, giving customizers an opportunity to have a different figure to turn into a JP3 style raptor. But overall, it definitely does look pretty fun, so let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, again, the head sculpt is absolutely a reused head sculpt. We've had this plenty of times with the, jumping raptor that we had released from Mattel numerous times at this point. So there's nothing new sculpt-wise, it seems, as far as the head sculpt goes, but I believe, the body, I don't know if it's entirely re-sculpted or if it just has modifications done to it, but we'll take a look at that regardless. But the head sculpt we really don't need to look at as far as the sculpt goes. We do have some nice articulation in the jaw, and as per usual, you can see a very nice realistic tone of color for the pink in the inside of the mouth. The teeth are pretty nicely painted. They don't appear to be too sloppy or anything. A little bit, but not too bad. Nicely painted with kind of like an off-white bordering on like a yellowish tone. We have a yellow eye for our raptor, which is really nicely placed. It does seem as though maybe that dark brown is actually the pupil paint, which is kind of like backpedaling on what Mattel was doing, as they were usually including black pupils for their figures, but I guess they saw fit not to do that with this one. The head, the majority of the head anyway, is a nice dark brown. The lower jaw is kind of like a variation, kind of like a green, and you can see that brown run down the course of the neck and kind of even spot down in a few areas. Eye paint over here is actually also quite nicely done, so that's definitely a plus. No sloppiness as far as the eye paint goes, which is something that you definitely come to expect at times from Mattel. We do have some smooth articulation in the neck as well, but that also kind of moves that midsection area. As we lead down into the body, you can start to see kind of like a creamy color pick up here that meshes with the dark brown and just kind of spots and stripes down in certain areas here of the body. It looks interesting. It is nice to have some alternate color variation, but I almost feel like it didn't really need that, or if they were going to use something like that, maybe a different color would have looked nicer. But again, it doesn't look bad by any means, just could have been nicer with a different variation of color included. The arm sculpt, it does look nice, beautiful creasing and really nice muscle definition as you move down the course of the arm. In general, even moving down here into the lower part of the arm, you can continue to see the muscle definition of the raptor. Very nicely sculpted out JP style Velociraptor hands with really nicely sculpted nails. Unfortunately, we don't have any nail paint, but you can see that there is like that speckling, kind of a dark brown speckling on this one that is included. And again, the wrists are not pronated, so that's super, super awesome. You can see as we move back into the stomach region, it's pretty much your standard as far as like Mattel Raptor skin texture goes, but that means that it looks really quite nice. As you turn it, you can just generally see like a lot of really nice structure here to the stomach region of the Raptor. Even the detailing here on the underside looks pretty nice. Not super, super vibrant like we're used to, but pretty decent for the most part. You can see the spinal column running along the back of the Raptor as well. You can also pick up on the really nice muscle definition here in the thigh and calf region of the Raptor, as well as some very nice skin detail back there. The foot sculpt, of course, is oversized like you usually always get from a Mattel figure, but it does still look really quite nice. Very nicely sculpted out nails, and again, you can see that black speckling running throughout the entire foot sculpt. You can also see the dew claw is present and everything over there, so that looks very nice. The dark brown here on the back continues to run down the course of the body and spot down in a few different areas, and I really like the way that they've painted that. And you can actually see that it runs out the entire way of the tail, and how awesome is that? Like the entire way. I don't know what a good way is. It almost looks like it doesn't match up very well when we actually have it in the position that it should be in. Right there is probably the correct position. It doesn't match perfectly, but actually it does look pretty good once it goes into place perfectly. It looks decent, but the darker brown paint runs the entire way out of the tail. Really nice curve in the tail as well, so that is super, super exciting. You can even see a little bit of like that greenish coloration here, but then it disappears completely and the entire tail is overtaken with that darker brown color. Here is the Jurassic Facts app code if you would like to add this to your collection. If I can get my camera to focus on it. There we go. There's the code. But again, the opposing side's really not going to look much different. The only really big difference over here would be a slightly different sculpt, I would say, for the hand. And also the leg is further forward on this side as the leg on the opposing side is trailing. The paintwork all looks pretty much the same, and the sculpt as well looks really quite nice from both sides, aside from the somewhat awkward appearance to like the midsection of the Raptor. There's an interesting little area here on the back right above the hips that almost looks like that's an area for a button. So I don't know if maybe this is like the reused body of the Savage Strike Raptor. Maybe that's where the button is and they just kind of covered it up, but I can definitely see it right there, right in this area right here. It looks like there should be a button right there, but again, pretty decent looking paint scheme, not anything overly amazing, but pretty fun regardless, and a fairly nice looking sculpt. So let's go ahead and check out the articulation. As far as the articulation goes, we again have articulation in the jaw and the neck. We also have it here in the midsection, which I guess this is the action feature, just kind of like a clawing action feature. Again, I would have expected there to be like a button or a lever or some way to activate that, but it doesn't seem like there is. I think you just have to like kind of manually do it, unless I'm an idiot and I can't quite figure it out. But we do have articulation in the arms, which works nice and smooth like you usually have. Again, this area definitely moves really nicely. And then you also have articulation in the legs, which also works quite nice, and articulation in the tail, which is a nice swiveled tail. Actually a little stiff, but still moves quite nicely. Again, I really can't figure out any specific way to do the action feature other than, maneuvering it yourself, and it looks okay, I guess, but definitely not at the top of the Mattel action features, that's for sure. As far as a size goes, for a length on our Raptor, you are looking at about 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. And then for a height, you can see it's about 4 inches or 10 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line in comparison to our Fierce Force Velociraptor, and you can see that it pretty much falls right in the same size range as your usual Mattel Velociraptor. It doesn't seem like the size has really been altered much, if at all, and to show you that, there is one of your standard Attack Pack style Velociraptors from Mattel, further showing again that they are pretty much the same size. No real big size difference or anything in this newest version compared to any of the previous versions. Just a little bit more length in the midsection, making it look a little bit awkward, but that's really about it. So this newest version of the Fierce Force Velociraptor is definitely a little nicer than I expected it to be, but nothing super groundbreaking or revolutionary as far as the Mattel Jurassic World line goes. It is still a pretty fun figure, and I really, really love the fact that they've added paint so far out onto the tail, which is something that Mattel doesn't do very often, so when they do, I'm really excited about it, and it looks really beautiful because of that. Like, it just looks so much nicer. Imagine if this raptor actually had painted nails. Even though it's not the most appealing paint scheme in the world, the entire thing would have just looked so much better than your usual Velociraptor from Mattel due to those two small additions to the figure. The sculpt, again, is really quite nice for the most part. You have that JP3 style head sculpt, which is making its first appearance on a different sculpt since its inception into the Jurassic World line. You also have a slightly altered body compared to the previous Raptors, potentially an entirely new sculpted body. I don't know for sure, but it has articulation in the midsection, which is, interesting, but it's definitely not my favorite Mattel action feature. But the midsection area just kind of makes it look a little strange and a little bit longer and potentially even a little fatter than what your standard Velociraptor would look like from Mattel, but I don't think it's anything that's too distracting when you actually have it in hand. It definitely looks a little nicer than what I had expected it to look like, especially from a lot of the online images I had seen. It definitely looks a lot nicer in person. And overall, again, it's another fun Velociraptor release. We have had about 1 billion Velociraptors from Mattel already, but at least this one's slightly different from the others. It's not just a straight-up repaint like we've had so many of in the past. So that is definitely a plus as well as far as this figure goes. So if you are interested in this, make sure you head to your local Walmart or Target, as both of those stores will be stocking this or potentially already are. I know Target's are. I don't know if anybody's actually found one in Walmart yet, but the tag's definitely there. So if you do in fact encounter one, again, good luck finding one. Make sure you pick it up and make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.